Mary had a little lamb. The fault.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
The border backup is starting to ripple across the U.S. as Canadian truckers protesting COVID vaccine mandates are adding to the U.S. supply chain crisis.
The economic harm that this occupation is having on international trade is not sustainable, and it must come to an end.
The auto industry hit hard. A parts shortage is already forcing GM to cancel shifts at a Michigan assembly plant.
There are hardworking men and women in an industry that's just getting back to full strength who are now going to be out of a job. It's going to have massive impacts on all of us in Michigan.
2 Ford plants in Canada are also scaling back production.
It's going to eventually trickle down and back up, an economy that's already stressed.
The Ambassador Bridge connecting Detroit and Windsor, Canada, closed. The Blue Water Bridge, 65 miles north in Port Huron, Michigan, backed up.
What they're doing here at the bridges isn't right. They're hurting their own people, which is the truck drivers.
While there's no current threat of planned violence, the Department of Homeland Security is now monitoring the possibility truckers could protest in Los Angeles on Super Bowl Sunday and then head east, potentially disrupting other cities across the country before reaching Washington, D.C. by President Biden's State of the Union address on March 1st.
We're not going anywhere.
Truckers have swamped Canada's capital for weeks in what's become the latest showdown over COVID policies.
I want to see that the mandate's gone. Like, give people a choice.
I guess both sides have to talk. I think the idea of a mediator is a great idea because they are completely at a stalemate right now.
Authorities in Windsor, Canada are now asking for a court order to kick out those protesters.
So fascinating when, the left wing was, doing protests in streets. The Republican governors in this here country gave permission for people who were annoyed by the blockage of their thoroughfares to run over protesters. That's the American way, right? So now we're border watching. It's Super Bowl freaking weekend, and I'm watching borders. No, not the southern border, you freaks. No, nobody cares. There's the, No, we're watching literally the Ukrainian-Russia border. Because some media is saying that Vlad has made up his mind and he just might attack during the Olympiad. And so we're watching the Canadian-United States border and the Russian-Ukrainian border. This is just all lunacy. This is all mafia-led, oligarchic, autocratic-led bullcrap. This is all just crazy. And of course, the truckers, there's about 100, maybe 200 truckers that are doing this because, we told you on day one of this, ridiculousness that 90% of Canada's truckers were vaccinated. 90% were vaccinated. So this is such a fringy, right-wing, American, homegrown, exported piece of dung that we allowed to go there. Last night, they said that their 911 system in Canada was overwhelmed. It was almost crashed. And when they looked at all the 911 calls that were coming in, they were fake and fraudulent calls coming from the United States. I mean, this is madness. This is crazy. And who are they hurting? They're hurting us. They're hurting our economy. They're hurting our auto workers. They're hurting our ability to purchase a new car. They're literally sitting there driving up, the closure of Ford plants and Honda plants and Toyota plants and GM plants, all, in northern, in North America, in Lansing, Michigan. They're canceling shifts now because they don't have parts. It's so unbelievable to me. This is just, it's lunacy. And who are they hurting? They're hurting us. They're hurting our economy. But the right wing in this country, if you went out and protested in the streets, they would say to their red state governors, we need permission to run them over. And Ron DeSantis would say, yeah, you got it. The hypocrisy of this fringy group in this country is just legendary.
Fox News, not a fan of past occupations.
The failure of the Occupy Wall Street movement.
But now, when they look north, they love what they see.
Right now, we're being led by Canadian truckers.
That's Will Kane dissing the U.S., saying Canada is acting more freedom-loving right now. Sounds like a challenge.
Canada's Freedom Convoy is still going strong tonight, and it's spreading all over the world.
Now they're asking, where's the American protest?
The question is, how long before protests like this come here?
Will we need our own trucker rally to end all of this insanity once and for all?
Is the trucker convoy coming to America?
All this coverage causing one staffer at the Fox opposing group Media Matters to say, I haven't seen Fox News try to will a protest into existence with this much effort since the lead up to January 6th.
Yeah.
It's happening on other networks, too.
Well, look at that, folks. The fight for freedom continues up in Canada.
One American News also hyping the story, covering it every hour, and arguably exaggerating its scope.
Ottawa has pretty much been taken over by the peaceful protesters.
CNN's fact check pointing out that many false claims about the size of the convoy have been making the rounds.
Size matters.
On Fox, it sure looks huge, with banners saying, Freedom Convoy captivates the world.
They're here for freedom.
And Sean Hannity endorsing the group.
We support what they're doing.
Sean sent a message. He sends a message. He says, we are standing beside you. He is standing beside you.
How might Fox treat a blockade by a different kind of group? Well, we don't have to wonder. These reports are from past episodes of Hannity's show.
And for a while, they stood in the middle of an intersection blocking traffic.
They were blocking traffic and some cars were trying to get through.
They're not allowed to block traffic, and yet they've been doing it now for about an hour.
Suffice to say, Hannity's not playing traffic cop during this protest. Look, this is people power in action in Canada. It's a big story. But right-wing media in the U.S. is only telling one side of that story. They're talking all about freedom. But freedom for some Canadians is instilling fear in others.
Now, this is a Canadian version that was led by American insurrectionists. This is like a January 6th effort that goes on every single day. Okay? Every single day. For what? For what? 90% of Canadian truckers are vaccinated, and here in the United States, we don't have vaccine mandates. You know, corporate might. In fact, who had a vaccine mandate? Who had a vaccine mandate? Oh, that's right, Fox. That's right, Fox News. They had a vaccine mandate. They still have a vaccine mandate. If you're not vaccinated, you don't get into that building. You don't get into the building on 6th Avenue in New York City. You have to have proof of vaccination to walk into Fox News. This is such garbage. It's such dung. Now, you know why they're pro this? Do you know why they're into this? Because this is helping to crash the economy. This is actually causing the supply chain issues that we have because of global COVID to exacerbate it. And Fox News is for anything at all when there's a Democratic president that trashes our ability to make a living, our ability to function, our ability to have an economy. That's why they're promoting this. It's a very small number of trucks, okay? Very small number. It's maybe 100 trucks. And a lot of these people aren't truck drivers. A lot of these people are right-wing QAnon, lunatic, fringy people. And a lot of them are operating on American soil as Americans, literally calling Canadian 911 and jamming up the lines there. So people can't call 911. So people can't call in hate crimes. People can't report. There's swastikas here. There's Nazi paraphernalia here. There's violence here. People can't do it because Americans and the Canadian government has said that their intelligence agencies confirmed that last night their 911 system was overwhelmed with fake calls from the United States. And Fox is all about it. Why? Because the president's a Democrat. Sick.
all things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
So far, that blockade has forced the Ford Motor Company to shut down one of its manufacturing plants and to operate another plant with a skeleton crew. Toyota says it won't be able to manufacture vehicles in Ontario for the rest of the week. General Motors has canceled multiple shifts at its plant in Lansing, Michigan, due to part shortages. So this protest is less than a week old, and already it is causing deep pain to at least one global industry. It's hard to overstate the historical significance of what we're watching right here. The Canadian trucker convoy is the single most successful human rights protest in a generation. If nothing else, it has been a very useful reminder to our entitled ruling class that working class men can be pushed, but only so far.
Oh my God, Fox has become progressive. Fox is now against a conglomerate. They're against a global business. They're against the auto industry. I wonder if he's for unions now. I wonder if he is. I don't know. This is unbelievable what's going on. I mean, this is obviously, you know, a January 6th event that is going on every single day by virtue of this endless loop of, you know, people not wanting to get vaccinated because of the disinformation and misinformation that they've been given about the efficacy of the vaccines, the safety of the vaccines, even though over a billion, multiple billions of vaccines have been deployed and people are fine. But anyway, so first they are vaccinated. That's what's so crazy about Fox. You had to be vaccinated to get into that building. They all have vax cards, all of them, because their corporation, their private industry, their global media conglomerate based in Australia told them they had to be vaccinated. So they are. So, but it didn't stop them from lying about vaccinations and you know, putting on anti-vaxxers and crazy doctors. And all kinds of anyway, that's that. And then when they saw, you know, this happen, you know, in Canada, they decided that they would get behind this thing in Canada, this anti-vax thing in Canada, and that they would promote it. They would give it life. They would lie about the size of it. They would lie about the efficacy of it. They would lie about, just like they did about vaccines. And then the Canadian, you know, right wing, the fringe in Canada, there is a nationalist fringe in Canada that never got a foothold in Canada before. They're a tiny, tiny little, you know, segment of Canada, just like, you know, the uber right wing QAnon contingency here in the United States is a tiny little smidge of people in the United States. But they decided that they would give that life over there. And the people there saw it and they felt emboldened by it. And then Fox started giving them accolades and, you know, and encouraging it to come here to upend our economy even further so that their wet dream of Joe Biden failing, of the U.S. economy failing, could be realized. Now, what's interesting is that they have always been anti-protest. They have never been for any protest that's ever happened anywhere in this country, unless it's an armed protest like Clive Bundy. They were all about that. Wherever there's guns and right-wing lunacy, that's what Fox is for. Whenever there's a pushback against, you know, for wages or for safety, or for, you know, workplace safety, or for unions, or for better pay, or for wage increases, or against pollution and dumping, and, you know, they're against it. In fact, they go as far as to say you should infiltrate these peaceful protests, turn them violent, and false flags are good. False flags are good. And then, you know, they say, well, we want it. You're blocking our roads. That's illegal. You're not allowed to block our roads. You're not allowed. So we want our red state governors to say that we have the right to run you over. And red state governors are so afraid of the monsters that they've created that they actually say, yeah, you can run them over. I mean, the hypocrisy is just endless. It really is. So the U.S.-Canadian border is now crowded with angry nutcases and Fox News boosterism. That's what's keeping this thing going. But this is what happens when you give anti-vaxxers access to heavy machinery. This is what happens. It's met. Now, they're talking about bringing this sort of anti-vax thing to America with trucks, okay, to America during the Super Bowl this Sunday, during the Super Bowl, and then seeing the convoys go across this country to upend all the, major arteries, all the roadways in this country, hurting truckers, hurting people who need to put down miles to make a living, hurting people who are already struggling because of the price of diesel, the price of gas, right? Hurting their own brethren, hurting each other, literally turning one against the other on our roadways, just so that they can trash the economy, just so that they could bring down the American economy during the time of the Democratic presidency ahead of a midterm. That is just so, if you can get whatever you want by clogging the streets of major cities, the world would be taken over by Uber drivers. The world would be taken over by truckers. Now, as a former trucker myself, that ain't our goal. Our goal is to put down miles, make some money, and get home and be home for the Super Bowl or be in some warm place to watch it. This is insanity. This is literally a tiny, fringy, crazy, lunatic, anti-vax group of people who just don't want to protect their own health. They don't care about anybody else. It's so stunning, but it's just this endless loop of lying that produces this horrible result. Horrible. Kathy in West Virginia.
Hi, I want to know where you get off calling these everyday, hardworking people dumb.
Sorry?
Number one, I want to know where you get off calling them dumb.
Calling who dumb? Who's dumb? Who did I call?
You called the truckers dumb.
No, I am a trucker. I was a trucker, okay? So I think you're barking up the wrong tree here.
No, I'm not barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah, you are. I did an entire show. 2 days ago talking to truckers. And the truckers that I talked to are
not be vaccinated. It's their choice.
No, it isn't their choice. We're in the middle of a pandemic.
Oh, I won't.
It isn't their choice. It is the choice of the Canadian government. Okay, it has nothing to do with America. It's not their choice. These are the laws in Canada. You're going to drive in Canada, you're going to follow the laws. Just like every trucker that I talked to this week, okay, said they understand what the rules are, okay? They all know what the rules are. There's not one trucker that doesn't know what the rules are. Kathy. Any of my drivers want to call Kathy and tell Kathy that we don't think badly or view truckers in a negative light? Anybody want to tell her? We do view the anti-vax crowd as being disinformed, misinformed, badly led, easily led, dupable. You're going to be against polio vaccines too now, Kathy?
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. Tonight, a group of American truckers announced they will begin a nationwide truck convoy in this country starting next month in protest against Joe Biden's vaccine mandates.
There are no vaccine mandates. This is insanity. You don't want me to call you stupid. Well, I don't know what else to say. There are no vaccine mandates. You know where the vaccine mandates come from in this country? From corporate. That's where they come from. Fox News had a corporate mandate. Everybody in Fox News had to get vaccinated. I just don't even know what you're talking about. I have no idea how you got this way. I expect more from you. Sorry. Stephanie in Tennessee.
Hi.
Hey.
I know a truck driver that's stuck in the middle of this mess.
Mm-hmm.
He's not with the protest,
right?
But he's talked to a few of the ringleaders, and this is not about vaccines.
What is it?
It's a white supremacist movement who believes in the Great Replacement theory, and they're aligned with East European troll farms, and they started there, and they're funneling money through that from East Europeans and they want to bring down the United States government and reinstate their own government along the lines of the conservative movement here.
Yeah, I had heard that too. I read it actually in the papers that this was being financed by, that's why you saw Nazi stickers on Canadian flags, stickers on Canadian flag. I mean, exporting this kind of hatred and vitriol to Canada where they are a polite society. I mean, why? Is it invading our neighbors this way with this disgusting mung of an ideology?
They can get the most news coverage there because Canada is so nice and polite, and it's mostly right now to distract from the Ukraine.
I don't know that it's Ukraine. I know that it's Russian troll farms. I know that it's troll farms in Eastern Europe. I don't know which.
Well, they're doing it to distract from the war from Russia into Ukraine.
Well,
they're trying to change the press.
Well, look, here's the thing. Russia has been trying to divide the United States ever since 2015, okay? The idea that they could crack us right down the butt crack and make us disloyal to NATO, make us disloyal to our allies in favor of them, and to hear, those lunatics on Fox News talk about why is it disloyal to root for a democracy known as Ukraine over a plutocracy, an autocracy, a mafia state like Vladimir Putin's Russia. They have been trying to divide us so hard so that Russia could say democracy doesn't work in their first message, and in their second message say, hey, we can actually, invade Ukraine, a democracy, and Americans will cheer for us. They will cheer for us. And that is what's been going on in Vladimir Putin's, disgusting troll farms. That's the kind of crap that he's been spreading throughout this country with his propaganda. And, for a small minority of Americans, it's working.
I agree with you 100%. I don't think they'll be able to do what Putin wants, but it's a big distraction away from what Putin's doing on the border of Ukraine right now.
Well, I think that if Putin starts a shooting war anywhere on this planet right now, because he has, literally sat there for months building up troops and saying, everybody look at me, I'm about to do something. It's not, there's no one that's going to be distracted. But what he could do is he can divide the United States along the lines of who's rooting for Vlad and who's rooting for Zelensky, who's rooting for democracy and who's rooting for a mafia state.
No, Fox is doing that.
Yeah, they are. They've taken a side, and the side is, on behalf of Putin. They've been pro-Putin for a very, 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 very long time over there. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
So
I know.
It's really sad and sick. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. I appreciate it. I do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Steph. Bye-bye.
Randy, it's interesting. She mentioned the perception of these nice Canadians. But I talked to two Canadian friends that I've had for a couple years online, one just north of Niagara, the other one just outside of Toronto. And I asked them, hey, what do you think of the, it got brought up briefly. And he said, they represent us and our freedom. And what do you think about your government taking our freedom? And I was so taken aback by that. I didn't really probe too much. I just thought it was very interesting that was his take.
Well, what does he do? Who is he? And why are you talking
to
him?
Well, I've known him for a couple of years, and that particular gentleman is unemployed. So you got to, take that. He's unemployed at the moment. A little younger than me.
These people are enemies of the state. These people are truly this crazy convoy, this fake 911 calls, overwhelming Canada's emergency response, ability yesterday. I mean, listen, the idea that Fox News is suddenly for these protests or any protests or blocking traffic or upending, the auto industry. Wow, this is really quite a turnaround. I guess you can't spell trucker without Tucker. But the idea that all of a sudden they understand what truck drivers, go through every day. They understand that you get paid by the mile. They understand what owner-operators are dealing with. They understand what the auto parts industry is. This is bull crap. They have no idea what that kind of a life is, what this, the solitary life of a trucker or the commitment of a trucker. Or they have no earthly idea what goes on out in America. None. And all of a sudden, to upend, a third of America's trade routes is good. It's good. And they're going to cheer for Putin to succeed in invading a democracy. Wow. They are enemies of the state. They are enemies of America. They are truly enemies of the people. I've never seen a network get away with this kind of cheering of the destruction of the United States of America out in the open. I've never seen that in my life. I've never ever experienced that. If you would have told my dad, who fought fascism, he did all this, and in the end, Americans were going to root for Russia. If you would have told my grandpa or my grandma on either side of my family who fled Belarus, who fled Ukraine, if you would have told them that in the end, Americans would start rooting for Russia and their form of their form of autocracy, they would tell you you're insane. Stop smoking, drinking, shooting, whatever it is you're smoking, drinking, shooting. Just stop it. Can't happen. You got crazy Kathy out there who doesn't realize that anti-vaxxers are idiots. They're stupid. Are you going to be anti-chickenpox vax now? Are you pro-mumps, pro-measles, rubella? Get under the rubella umbrella. Are you, what? Make polio great again? Is that what you put on the side of your, truck? Is that what you put on the side of your house? What is this? All we're saying, protect yourself. Keep yourself as healthy as possible. Don't clog up our hospitals. Don't let the virus mutate. Don't host it. Don't give it a safe quarter in your body. That's all. We're not even asking you to protect your own children, because you won't do that. You just love fetuses. You don't really love children.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right. Where are we going to go here? Let's go to Nick in West Virginia.
Yes, ma'am. I was going to make a comment on that Kathy lady that called in about the vaccines.
Yeah.
What an idiot. I mean, she embarrasses the state like Joe Manchin embarrasses us.
Uh-huh.
Here we are, the poor state in the union, have more in common. I'm a white male. We got in West Virginia more poor people that has more in common with all the minorities, but we got a senator up here and idiots like this, the no-vaccine lady, that's ruining our country because of a few idiots. I can't agree no more than what you say.
Well, I mean, I don't understand what her beef is. She apparently, is one of those that watches something, and doesn't really know what she's watching, and then calls in and makes, unwelcome comments toward the host, who happens to be an ex-trucker. I don't even understand, what her deal is. These anti-vaxxers in Canada are a tiny, tiny little fringe of Canadian citizenry, right? 90% of all the truck drivers in Canada, 90% of them are vaccinated. 85% of all Canadians are vaccinated. The United States has only 64% of our population vaccinated, and it's because of disinformation and misinformation and lunatic fringy broadcasters and controversy for the sake of controversy that America, is in this predicament where we still have over 100,000, just under 100,000 people hospitalized from a preventable disease, from a preventable virus today, where we're still watching over 2,000 people die every single day. Positivity rates are over 8% every single day in just about every single state. And she's saying, I'm calling people stupid. I'm calling her stupid.
Well, my brothers are anti-vaxxers, and my mom lives in Florida. I told my mom not to come back up here and visit I don't want her to, she's older and don't chance her life. And she's not. He said, well, if they ain't got enough sense, I'm not going to come up there and die.
So wait, your mom's not vaccinated?
No, my mother is, but my two brothers are on the Trump train and don't want to get vaccinated or do this or do that.
It's Trump's vaccine. Again, how stupid you have to be. He was the one that was out there saying, get vaxxed, get boosted, get it all. It's the Trump thing. It was Operation Warp Speed. We did this. We created this vaccine. You do it. I did it. My kids did it. I mean, Trump's own kids did it. Every single person that gives a damn about their own self, that has any self-respect, is vaccinated, which tells me that there's still a chunk of this country, about 35%. Well, I'll say 30 because, kids under 5 make up a portion that can't get vaccinated, right? But all these adults that won't get vaccinated, yes, you're idiots because you're gullible and you believe bad and wrong information.
What happened to, like in the World War II when we all come together to fight something? Whatever happened
Well,
to that?
we didn't have Fox News during World War II, or you could best believe that the Nazis in this country would have been triggered to support Hitler.
I mean, that's the point I get to. We can't, that's what I told my brothers. You've been getting vaccinated since kindergarten, smallpox, rubella, name the list.
And you know how many smallpox vaccines you need to have? You need 5. 5. So people are complaining, what do you mean I need 3? I already had 1. What do I need 2? Polio is 5. There's a lot of vaccines that take more than 1 dose to give you the immunity that you need. I don't know why people love to forget this stuff or pretend they don't know it or decide that, the people who are vaccinated at that Fox News network or at the OAN network, where their corporation, their corporate masters have told them that they will get vaccinated. And they don't, do they think that the United States, that these truckers are driving for the United States of America, or don't they realize these truckers are driving for, freight companies? They're driving for, Badger Lines. They're driving for, J.B. Hunt. They're not driving for the United States of America. They're driving for Wiener. I don't even know what people are thinking. How do you even get here? How do you even get there? The United States is mandate. We don't have mandates. We don't have mandates. Canada has a mandate. Canada's got a vaccination mandate for their truck drivers. They say that if their truck drivers go to the United States, where there is no mandate, and want to come back into Canada, they have to be vaccinated or they have to quarantine. That's Canada. Bridget in Ontario.
Hi, Randy.
Hey.
I just wanted to correct you there. The Canadian truckers to enter the United States have to be vaccinated.
Since when?
Since always, since the whole time.
No, not true.
The Canadians didn't lift the border.
Not true. Not true. We didn't even have vaccination requirements for people coming for pedestrian things.
Well, the truckers do have to be vaccinated to enter America.
No. And no, it's the other way around. Justin Trudeau put a vaccine mandate in place for Canadians. For Canadians. America doesn't have a vaccine mandate.
Okay, well, I'll disagree with you on that. But the other...
It's a fact.
Well, the other proof that this is just malarkey is that they're protesting in Ottawa when all the mandates around are controlled by the provincial government. And they're yelling at Justin Trudeau.
Well, they're in Ottawa because they want to be around Parliament. They're in Ottawa because they want to be by government. So that's what they're going to do here, too. I guarantee you Joe Biden's going to give his State of the Union in the beginning of March. I guarantee you they're going to be outside the Capitol honking their freaking horns here, too.
And it's the same mentality because Justin Trudeau won the election last year, and these right-wing conservative lunatics can't handle it.
Well, they could. It's just... we are exporting this kind of January 6th insurrection behavior into your polite society, into your country, okay? I mean, the idea that Canada is going to succumb to American, white supremacist ideology is so bizarre to me. It's so wrong. It's so crazy. It's so dangerous. And we're exporting it to you And it makes no sense. It makes no sense. I can't even understand how a society like yours with national health care and all those things. Yes, they mandated vaccines because you have national health care, because they don't want the hospitals clogged up. I mean, it just, I don't get it.
And it's all being fed the same way Hillary lost the election. It's all being fed by Facebook.
Well, see, this is the crazy thing. Every single thing that Hillary was being accused of, right? She used a private server, and there might have been classified information on. This is exactly what Donald Trump did. He took classified, top secret documents out of the White House, brought it down to his, freaking home here in Palm Beach, Florida. I mean, I'm sitting like 5 minutes from his house, and is sitting there with boxes full of. And using burner phones and using other people's phones and not following the rules. It's amazing to me, the hypocrisy of these people. It's bizarre that the followers don't get insulted by it. That's the thing I think I find the most shocking. But the
dumbest in society will grab on to the most sensational headline that
it's not even that, though. It's that the things that are happening are the things that they accused us of wrongdoing for doing. The things that they say are bad are the things that they're embracing when their guy does it. And I don't know why they're being bamboozled in this manner. I don't know. I mean, they stood at all these rallies screaming, lock her up, lock her up, lock her up, because they said Hillary Clinton, her emails were on a private server. Well, Donald Trump was flushing papers down the freaking toilet. He was using burner phones. He was using other people's phones to go undetected. He's been talking, when he had the Russians in the Oval Office after his election victory, he, literally wouldn't let anybody in to take notes about what he told Lavrov, what he told them. I mean, God forbid, if we did anything like that, my God, how are they so stupid? I don't understand it. I really don't. This is the craziest part of it, is how do you not see that vaccinated people in Fox News who are telling you to upend the United States economy by virtue of a Canadian vaccine mandate that is not here in the United States, but they should stop trade, they should stop auto parts, they should stop, shifts at Ford, they should stop shifts at General Motors, they should stop producing SUVs for Buick and Chevrolet and GMC, and Toyota should shut down production of 3 of its plants. What? For a vaccine mandate that we don't even have? And 90% of Canadians have taken it?
Mary had a little ram. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
The cost of a new vehicle up more than 12%. The cost of furniture up more than 9%. And the amount you're paying at the grocery store up 7.4% compared to this time a year ago.
Inflation is up. It's up.
But Americans don't need the reminder.
Delivery costs, like product costs, everything seems like it's going up.
Prices are skyrocketing with no signs they're coming down soon. Gas prices up a whopping 40%. Furniture, used cars, and electricity also seeing a surge. At the grocery store, staples like eggs and pork are more expensive.
With the cost of food, you just have to bite the bullet. And, some things you just have to sacrifice.
The White House says it supports whatever steps the Federal Reserve might take to ease the crunch, but there's little more the Biden administration can do to drive down prices. Republicans blame the Democratic Party's spending plans passed in the last year.
This is a direct result of liberal policy choices.
During a visit to Virginia, Mr. Biden said proposals like his Build Back Better plan, which is dead as written up on Capitol Hill, could help bring down costs.
But the fact is that if we are able to do the things I'm talking about here, It'll bring down the cost for average families. It will not increase the debt.
But Senator Joe Manchin, that moderate Democrat who helped kill the president's spending plan amid his concerns it would accelerate inflation, is once again sounding the alarm.
This inflation is real. It's harming people. You don't throw more fuel on the fire that's already on fire, causing the problems that we have.
A recent CBS News poll found that about 2/3 of Americans feel the administration hasn't done enough to tackle inflation in the president's first year in office, making this issue one of his and the Democratic Party's biggest political hurdles to clear, with the midterm elections fast approaching.
Yeah. So what is causing inflation? What is exactly causing inflation? You know, the Republicans would like to tell you that the reason why inflation is looking this way, the reason why inflation is 7.5%, is because you have too much money. It's because you have too much money. It's not because of greedy corporations who are, and I told you this at the beginning of the first inclination that we got, that inflation was going to be a thing, right? And I told you, I read you an article from the Wall Street Journal of all places, the business newspaper of the freaking planet, that said that corporations weren't seeing any pushback from American consumers as they raised their prices and increased their profit margins, meaning not just their profits, not just the raw numbers, but the margins. Say they were making 5% off of selling you something. They raised their prices so that they could now make 8% off of something they're selling you. And that is called gouging. And it is happening. And the way that the Wall Street Journal knew this, and the way that every single journalist knew this, was they would sit on the earnings calls with these CEOs from various corporations across this here country. And they would listen to them say, well, you know, we had record profits last year, and this is just the tailwind because now, you know, we're going to raise prices and see what happens. They did. They raised prices. And you know what happened? Nothing. No one pushed back. Nobody changed brands. And even if you wanted to, odds were you were just buying another branded product from that corporation's conglomerate, like Procter & Gamble. Or, I mean, it's just so unbelievable. So I'm just going to show you real quick what's going on, okay? This is a Wall Street Journal reporter named Dion Rabun, and he's actually going to tell you on behalf of reporters at the Wall Street Journal that they were on these earnings calls and what they heard.
Woe is me. We have no choice but to raise our prices. Our labor costs are going up. Our inputs. But that's a lie. Here's the truth about inflation. Companies love it. I'm going to tell you why, show you how they benefit, and explain why it is that we're seeing such wide-ranging price increases right now. Inflation isn't something that just happens. People make it happen. When companies make statements about their new higher prices to the public, they frame it as something they have to do. Like here, when PepsiCo CFO Hugh Johnston told Bloomberg the company was raising prices to deal with inflation. But in reality, companies aren't being forced to raise prices because of inflation. They're raising prices because they can. I know this because I've listened to company earnings calls, like this one.
Building on the strength of our brands, we are thoughtfully executing tailored price increases.
And this one too.
We expect to continue delivering positive pricing even though we are lapping strong mid-single-digit price increases in the second half of 2020.
You see, when companies talk to investors about prices rising, they make it clear that this helps rather than hurts the business.
So we view a little bit of inflation as always good in our business.
To be sure, firms around the world are absolutely facing rising costs for materials, labor, and more. But they're raising prices by significantly more than that. We know this because of net margins. In layman's terms, net margins are the percentage of profit that a company earns from every dollar of sales. Over the past year, companies' net margins have risen to record highs. And net margins are expected to rise again over the next year. In fact, analysts are expecting companies to deliver record margins this year, as in the largest gap between companies' costs and their profits in history. And at the same time, Economists and stock analysts are also expecting inflation to steadily decline. So firms are expecting to keep raising prices, even though the price increases they say are forcing their hand are slowing down.
This is just gouging. That's all it is. It's like somebody standing on the street corner after a hurricane selling you ice. Okay, that's all it is. This is just multinational corporations who own an extraordinary amount of brands, lots and lots of brands of things. No antitrust legislation coming down the pike in this country to I've talked to you about this. I've said to you, medium-sized and small people who try to compete against the big ones, either one of two things happens. Either they buy your company and put your company on a shelf so that it doesn't compete with them, or they buy your company and they start marketing your product and they jack up the price and make money for themselves. But you don't stand a chance. This is kind of like what Facebook does. So Facebook gets competition from, let's say, WhatsApp, or Facebook gets competition from Instagram. What does it do? It buys Instagram. It buys WhatsApp. It buys a whole lot of other platforms that you never heard of because they bought them and shelved them so that you don't even know, that they were there. So first we have widespread pandemic profiteering, taking a massive toll on all of us who have to buy things, everybody who had to work, everybody who ran a small business, while corporate executives made fortunes, as we all were reading, right? Shareholders were getting richer. Corporate CEOs were giving themselves raises and patting themselves on the back, right? Because we have an unbalanced and brittle economy that allows for mega corporations to profit from crises. What have I told you? In chaos, they can steal. Wage increases for workers are not a driver of current price spikes. Chaos is. Chaos is. And corporations only have this kind of power to make money in chaos because we spent the last 50 years allowing these mega corporations to take control of the supply chains. They only, they decided that they weren't even going to store things for a rainy day. They weren't going to have stockpiles in case something bad happened. No, they spent their time merging, acquiring, shelving, right? And then they did this efficiency thing, the just-in-time delivery thing.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Naturally, corporations love this because it fattens the bottom line. And data show how they're using these record profits. They're buying back stock to push their share prices higher, and they're giving raises and bonuses to top executives. But why is it that companies can do this? Doesn't our Economics 101 textbook tell us that when companies raise prices, smaller, more efficient firms step in, disrupt their business, and steal their customers? Well, yes, but while Congress has done a lot of talking about updating U.S. antitrust laws, the past 30 years has seen weak policy from the government and a massive concentration of companies. 75% of all American industries have become more concentrated in the last 2 decades. That means there's just less competition out there, and big companies have more influence. And thanks to the coronavirus pandemic and the Federal Reserve, large corporations have another leg up. In March 2020, the Fed announced it would buy unlimited US Treasury bonds, as well as debt from American companies, including those with junk credit ratings. That allowed big businesses to borrow money for incredibly low costs. The lowest in history for many. Because investors knew the Fed was purchasing corporate bonds to steady the market, they were willing to buy just about anything. That led to companies issuing a record amount of debt and using the money to shield themselves from competition. Small businesses, on the other hand, who aren't large enough to issue debt on public markets, found it exceptionally difficult to borrow money. Banks tightened up their credit standards, and commercial and industrial lending plummeted. So big corporations loaded themselves up with cash that they could use to push smaller competitors out of the market, or buy them. And just like that, there's a lot less competition to worry about. Now, conglomerates like Kimberly-Clark, Procter & Gamble, and Unilever can raise prices and feel confident that customers will keep paying. Nearly 100 of the biggest US publicly traded companies booked 2021 profit margins that were at least 50% higher than their 2019 levels.
That's pandemic time.
That was a big part of the record retail sales numbers we saw last year. That and customers panic buying because they were expecting prices to keep going up. So the next time you hear about a company raising prices because of inflation, know that it's actually the other way around. Companies are raising their prices, and as a result, inflation's probably going to keep rising.
It's unbelievable. Everything is exactly backward from what, crazy people on the TV and on the radio and on the podcasts and on the platforms are telling you. They're rooting for our demise. They're literally hoping that democracy fails. They're literally hoping our economy fails. They're hoping Joe Biden fails. They're hoping Democrats, and they're going to tell you, this is exactly how. Yet people always ask, how do they get people to vote against their own best interests? This is how. They are literally telling you right now on conservative media, on right-wing, lunatic, fringy platforms, that the problem America has is Americans have too much money. They're telling you that the stimulus packages and that the rescue plan, the child tax credit, the things that took 40% of our kids out of poverty, the things that got you fed and kept a roof over your head during the pandemic are what's causing inflation. And it's exactly the opposite. What's causing prices to rise are corporations raising prices. And then that particular scenario is inverted. And they say, well, prices are high because you have too much money, not prices are high because corporations are raising prices. It's an amazing thing. Here's a real simple explanation.
There's only so much that any president can do about inflation. It's not like a president has a magic wand, but there are things that a president can do. We know that Joe Biden has been very active when it comes to talking to individuals trying to fix the supply chain issue. Is he doing as much when he's talking to individuals who are CEOs about price hikes? Because one of the reasons that prices are going up, look, some of this is a natural response to the nation emerging from a pandemic and supply exceeding demand. And that's just true. But that's not all of it. Some of it is corporate greed. I mean, some of it is, for instance, if you look at the earnings calls that CEOs and CFOs did at the end of January, there's a lot of chest thumping about price increases that they have been able to push through, taking advantage of the situation, taking advantage of supply exceeding demand, whether it's in grocery items or other things. And look, that's a place where the president's bully pulpit could be used even more.
Yeah, except it's demand exceeding supply. But they're just raising prices. That's what they're doing. Corporations are raising prices. They are increasing their profit margins. They are literally making billions and billions of dollars during COVID. They are making money hand over fist. And they are literally talking to each other on these earnings calls saying, we're raising prices. We haven't seen any pushback. We're raising prices. We don't see people stop, not buying our stuff. We're raising prices on diapers. We're raising prices on paper towels. We're raising prices on toilet paper. We're raising prices. We're gouging people for, cleaning supplies because people want to buy cleaning supplies because they're freaked out about, the pandemic. So let's raise the prices on cleaning supplies. Let's raise the prices on bleach. Let's raise the prices on, everything because we don't see any pushback. We don't see people not buying our stuff. And by our stuff, we're talking about just about every CEO that controls everything that's on the shelves, whether you think that it's a Procter & Gamble branded, brand product or not. They bought everything. Unilever, Procter & Gamble. I mean, you look at what they're doing. The buying that they did of other companies, the merging that they did of other companies, the stock buyback. They have so much cash sloshing around, right? And so they're giving themselves raises while they're raising their prices. Kimberly-Clark CEO Mike Hsu, he crowed on the earnings call. He said, quote, "We did multiple rounds of significant pricing actions, and we're going to continue to do it throughout the year because there's been no pushback." The fourth quarter report from Johnson & Johnson said, "We raised prices, even though we raked in billions from the COVID vaccine sales." The CEO, Joaquin Duato, he told investors, "The strong underlying demand for medical care, caused by different diseases, is part of our optimism and our opportunity." They made a fortune off of these vaccines. And, the J&J ones, we're not really sure that they were efficacious, let's say. So people who got J&J had to go out and get Pfizer or Moderna, right? Hi, Brett. But 3M, which makes the N95 masks and other things, they said, quote, "The team has done a marvelous job in driving price. Price has gone up from 0.1% to 1.4% to 2.6%, end quote," the chief financial officer told investors. "We think that's just a tailwind." Procter & Gamble, they do all the household cleaning products, from feminine care to cleaning supply stuff. "Building on the strength of our brands, we're thoughtfully executing tailored price increases because we see a lower reaction from the consumer in terms of price elasticity than what we would have seen in the past."
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
This morning, you heard that inflation is at a 40-year high. Even though wages are up, job creation is at a 40-year high, and American consumers are turbocharging the economy. But here's a dirty little secret that companies do not want you to know. Some of them are taking advantage of the situation and charging you way more just because they can. If you watch our sister network, CNBC, you hear a lot of CEOs just crowing about their ability to raise prices.
We're still chasing demand, so we haven't seen a lot of resistance to the price increases. And given the inflationary trends that we're seeing and what's happening to cost of goods, distribution and logistics costs, we will likely have to take more pricing in the year ahead.
If you look at our performance last year, you saw a very, very strong performance on price mix, mostly driven by price, and that was really accentuated in the fourth quarter.
The fact remains, even though we've taken some pricing to date, our chicken burrito is still, less than $8 for most parts of the country. So we have more room to take price as we need to. Obviously, we want to take our time on doing that.
And just think about that for a moment. These companies are charging you way more. And the CEOs and their fellow suits are conveniently blaming inflation. Why? Because the people these CEOs work for, no, not the customers, not their workers, the shareholders. The shareholders, they love it, and they reward them for it. Take poor Hemplo, Mr. Bird from Levi's, who makes $10 million a year. Or Mr. Nichols from Chipotle, who took home $38 million. The bulk of that in incentives and an annual bonus just in 2020 alone. What better way to please your shareholders than jacking up your profit margins? Woohoo, money!
Money! Woohoo! They're raising prices. There is no correlation between the amount of money in your pocket and them raising prices, except to say they think demand is so high right now. And the supply chain's a little funky, as you can tell. And so they're just going to raise prices because demand is so high. They don't even say we're going to raise prices. When you listen to the CEO talk, when you listen to corporate lingo jargon, it's so offensive because they call it, when they raise prices, they call it take pricing. We're going to take pricing. We're still chasing demand, meaning people are still buying our stuff. People are still buying. So we're going to take pricing. We're going to raise the price of soap. We're going to raise the price of a burrito. We're going to $8 for a Chipotle burrito. Is that right? I don't eat there.
I do, and that is right.
$8 for a burrito?
It's good, but $8 is
$8 for a burrito? Are you freaking kidding me? See, I just don't get it. I don't. So they're raking in these record profits for the CEOs, for the shareholders, for the investors, and they are raising prices because there's no competition in the marketplace left. Why? Because they bought everything. They bought every medium and small business that could or would compete with them. And that's why I told you at the beginning of this, they were doing this, but you didn't want to hear from me. So it's finally made its way into the mainstream. It's finally made its way onto the TV there. CNBC, CNN, the Wall Street Journal, the Wall Street freaking Journal. They're all telling you the same damn thing. And that same damn thing is they're raising prices because they're greedy, and they're raising prices because they're gouging, and they're raising prices because we do have more money in our pocket. We do. And they are going to charge us more because they don't see us pushing back on them raising their prices. Elasticity, you know. Price elasticity means we can stretch it way, way up. Stretch it, stretch, make all kinds of money now. And it's not just profits, it's profit margin, increasing the amount of money they make off of $1 of sales. Instead of, making 20 cents off of $1 of sales, now you make 30 cents off of $1 of sales. I wish I had a profit margin like that. We barely make it. We barely make it. Oh, it's just so unbelievable. It's just so, and it's widespread. It's on every damn thing on the shelves. And they're just loving life. They're just, they say we have very low reaction from the consumer in terms of price elasticity than what we have seen in the past. Procter & Gamble has said that price increases drove their net sales up 6% higher than the previous year, bringing their total earnings for the quarter up 9% to $4.2 billion. $4.2 billion. And everybody's been trained to blame Joe Biden. They've been trained to blame America first. They've been trained to blame America for any and all grievances. Sad. That's why I say these people are enemies of the state. The ignorance that they carry around with them, the malleability, meaning the ability for them to be misled or disinformed or misinformed or believe something, erroneous that gets them to vote against their own best interest, which is getting more money in your pocket, getting childcare, getting prescription prices lowered because Big Pharma is doing it too. Why would a 100-year-old drug like insulin? Yeah. Why would a 100-year-old drug? What would that have to do with R&D? What? Nothing. Why would a 100-year-old drug cost $1,000 a month when it really should cost, with a nice profit built in, $32, $35 a month? Why is that? It's called gouging. It's called because we can. It's called conservatism. It's called big business rules. It's called corporate mentality. It's called shareholder. It's so ridiculous. And it's so observable and it's so audible. I mean, you could hear these CEOs say these things, and they're very careful though. They won't say, we're raising prices. Nah. They go, we're going to take price. They have a whole little, jargon. A whole way to signal to each other what they're going to do, right? Without saying the obvious, without saying, we're raising prices. No, we're going to take pricing. We're still chasing demand, so we're going to take pricing. And people are, we're getting a lower reaction from the consumer in price elasticity. Who talks like that? No one. No one talks like that. But we've been trained. Look at Biden. Look at the Democrats. This is a direct result of Democratic policies. Oh, please. Build Back Better would have lowered the cost of insulin to $35 a month from $1,000 a month. Build Back Better would have actually covered hearing aids for elderly people who are paying out of pocket for freaking hearing aids because it's not covered. Build Back Better would have helped you pay for childcare, would have helped me pay for elder care. Build Back Better would have lowered the cost of things in my household, in your household. But Manchin, your West Virginia guy, he played on Kathy's stupidity.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
The inflation numbers today were not great. They're up 7.5 over the year. It's making it harder for families to afford the cost of food, put groceries, in their grocery carts, and put gas in their cars. And there are a lot of different reasons for that. But one of them that we're not hearing enough about is just this bald-faced profiteering. My organization at the Groundwork Collaborative, we combed through hundreds of earnings call transcripts, hundreds from Q4. And what we saw over and over again is that CEO after CEO is coming out and really just crowing about their pricing actions, how great pricing is going for them, how proud they are of their teams, for their brilliant pricing actions. And what that means for these companies is record-breaking profits, not just increased profits, increased profit margins, right? And what they're telling their shareholders is, that's good news for us. It's good news for you. We're going to do buybacks. And oh, by the way, expect more. Because we're seeing how far we can push this. And so far, there hasn't been any blowback for a whole host of reasons, because there's some demand. Also, in some cases, because these companies don't have any competition, right? There's really no competition to keep these prices in check. And so they're saying, expect this again next quarter. And we're really just getting started here.
Okay, so what do we do? What do we do? All right, so there's a couple of things. First of all, you can just if something that you normally buy, the price has been raised, you can just not buy it and buy an off-brand, or buy a brand that's the store brand that competes with the brand that you usually buy, but they're raising the prices. You could do that. The other thing that we can do is we can actually insist that we have a price gouging prevention act. It's called HR 675. It exists. It's written. It's a piece of legislation. The committee can actually investigate. The Federal Trade Commission can investigate these anti-competitive, deceptive, unfair business practices, just like they go after gougers after an earthquake or a hurricane or any natural disaster. When people go out there and try and gouge you for ordinary household things like water, and they start charging you $6 a gallon for water, that's anti-gouging. It's covered, right? You could do this nationally to protect ourselves and encourage competition. We can do antitrust legislation where we break these companies up. That's why everybody was screaming about Facebook needed to be broken up. But maybe now you understand that these huge conglomerates that control everything from diapers to baby wipes to, bleach, they shouldn't be allowed to gouge us this way. And if they insist on doing it because we're good with it, we're not pushing back. The other thing that I really like is, it's so interesting. I wonder if Fox would actually support this kind of an action to protect the American consumer. We could actually learn when these earnings calls are occurring and dial on in. If we're a shareholder, if we own one share of Procter & Gamble, dial on in and start screaming at them, start honking horns on the call, start getting, noisemakers or whatever, and tell them this is the pushback you've been waiting for. This is the blowback. This is it. It's happening. It's on. It's now. But this profiteering that's gone on in the midst of the pandemic, I mean, I'm sure everybody in this audience was hearing the news that they had made billions, that the billionaire class in this country had increased their share of billions. And they were wondering, how the hell did that happen? Was I just buying that much crap on Amazon? No, they were raising their prices. They were gouging you. That's how that happened. And they were waiting for the blowback. They were waiting for the pushback. They were waiting for us to say, I'm just not buying that anymore. I'm just going to go find some other brand. I'm just going to, instead of this air freshener, I buy that air freshener. Instead of these diapers, I buy that diaper. Instead of this bacon, I buy that bacon. They're just waiting. They're waiting for you to do that. So do that. Steve in Arizona.
Hey, Randy, you got some great thoughts there. I only caught the first portion of your program and then the portion on this wage gouging. The truckers, that's insane. They shouldn't be allowed to do this. And then tying up these 911 lines. I've got a buddy who's an ex-retired 911 guy, and they're putting the public safety at risk. And these people should be arrested.
They're going to start fining these. It doesn't take much to close a bridge. And so they're going to start fining these truckers. I don't know exactly how much. They've talked about, $100,000. But they're going to start fining them for, interfering with interstate commerce or, international commerce, actually. So
I sure hope so, because that's what needs to be done. It needs to be squashed. These wage and price control things. Nixon did that in the early 70s. He put a wage and price control in. That might be an option. You mentioned there's already a law in the books. That's a great idea. These companies merging, it's driving me nuts. Southwest, or not Southwest, but Frontier and Spirit are going to be merging.
Yeah, because they both have such outstanding service that who wouldn't want more of them? These are the worst.
Oh, my goodness. You hit that on the head. Like Delta and Northwest, that should have never took place. American Airlines and U.S. Air and America West and all the little feeder airlines before that, none of this should have took place. United and Continental, the plain passenger or the Joe everyday person is just really hosed in this society. But those are just some of my thoughts, and that's about what I had to say, Randy. So
well, we need to. You're welcome, because obviously they're out there talking. They're on the TV, on channels that only business people watch, right? And small business owners don't have time to watch the billionaire class talk about their stock prices, okay? We're very busy running our businesses. We're very busy doing everything from, how they always say you have to be a chief cook and bottle washer? Well, that's what it's like being a small business person. You have to do everything, every part of it, from payroll to execution, to providing the product, to customer service, to refunds, and just questions, answers, shipping if you buy a T-shirt, and it's all in. It's such a hard thing to do. So I don't have time to watch the TV, as you know. I've been treating myself to the Olympiad and feeling extremely guilty this week because I haven't been reading as much as, I normally do. I've been watching a little sports and feeling guilty about it. But anyway, when I see these people on the CNBCs, on the Wall Street Journals, just touting their business prowess because they're gouging us, because they're raising prices, because we have a little bit more money. We have better wages. We have a booming economy. We have unbelievable growth. We have everything going our way. And the corporate class in this country, let me tell you something. It's not just, I have this theory in my head. I'm not saying this is provable. I've demonstrated what is provable. I've demonstrated that they are saying we're raising prices, we're increasing our profit margins because we can. But I also have this theory in my head that the corporate elite are doing this to us at this time because they don't want a Democratic president. They want a Republican president so that on top of making all this money, they don't ever have to pay taxes on it. And they know damn well that Democrats stand for paying your fair share. They know damn well that the redistribution of wealth that's gone on in this country to them will stop if we had a few more senators. They know it. If we had somebody other than the very purchasable Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema as roadblocks to progress, right? And they know that. They know that. So they're piling onto this inflationary spiral on purpose. It serves all of their purposes. People always say nobody ever does anything in business for just one reason. Well, this is more than one reason, although money and shekels and dollars and petrodollars and, electrodollars and all that, the world is a business to them. We're not people. We're not workers. We're not wage earners. We're not families. We're not mothers. We're not fathers. We're not sisters. We're not brothers. We're just flotsam and jetsam, right? We're just an end point on one of their charts. That's it. So they sit there and they say, well, who's going to make us pay taxes? Well, certainly not the Republicans. So shouldn't we raise prices now to ensure that we don't have to pay taxes on the back end? I mean, the gravy train cannot end. It can't end. And so it serves that purpose too. Like I said, that's just something I'm, deducing from what I see. I can't prove that, that's their goal. I can follow the money. I can see like who the device makers, the medical industry, I could see, like who they donate to. You know what I mean? But they haven't gone on CNBC. I don't have any audio or video to play you where they're saying, let's pile on to this economy and make it fail so we can get back to, the redistribution of wealth and not paying our fair share of taxes. Anyway, it's Super Bowl. See, I love all this stuff. So I don't even want to say who I'm rooting for. Go Burrows.